November 24th. This is Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. I welcome you to yet another edition of Relentless Learning. I'm your host, Larry Apke. A little later, I'm going to have my good friend Llewellyn Falco join me. Looking forward to that. First, I want to remind everybody what Relentless Learning is. Relentless Learning is a place where we can come together every Friday and talk about two big ideas, what I call two big ideas. And the concept between the big for the big idea is things that give us kind of an aha response. I like to talk about the aha response. You probably heard me say that before. Things where we see the world differently than we saw it before, and it unlocks certain things for us. It helps us in our lives. We want to do it pretty quickly because we know you're all busy people. So within the next 45 minutes, we're going to present two big ideas that hopefully will have some applicability to your lives as individuals, something that you can use, and we'll also have a chance for y'all to ask questions. So this week's two big ideas, Llewellyn Falco, the guest who join us soon, we'll talk about systems thinking, shared versus split pain, and I'm going to present shortly on Apke's first law of Agile transformation. It's something that I came up with a long time ago, and I think it's relevant today. I've changed it over the years, but probably something hopefully you'll all be interested in. Next week, my guest will be Bill Lennon. He's going to present on the best teams and supervisors, managers, leaders are willing to get uncomfortable to support their teams. And then I'm going to stay with the theme of Apke's laws of Agile transformation. I'm going to present my second law of Agile transformation. Hopefully you'll find those interesting and informative. What is the sponsor for Relentless Learning, as always, at least this week, is the VUCA MBA. What is the VUCA MBA? This is a class that I teach for companies, and I actually am going to teach one for the general public if folks are interested in joining that as well. VUCA, the acronym VUCA, stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It comes to us from the military. It's basically a way of describing how the world is and how it's changing. There are other acronyms, BANI and TAMF and others that are similar, but basically we're saying the same thing. We understand that the world is changing quite a bit, and how do we actually understand this new world? It's much different than what we've experienced as humans through most of our evolution. And then the MBA part is you're not going to get a Master's of Business Administration. It actually stands for Mindset for Business Agility. It is what I believe is necessary for us to be successful in the VUCA world, is we need to have that mindset for business agility. Just a couple real quick things, and these are in the comments as well. I've decided to actually do my class for the general public, which I don't do very often. This will be December 12th through 14th. There's a link there. It's a 3-day training, and it's a training that I've given to over 4,000 people worldwide under the branding Agile MBA. Now we brand it as VUCA MBA. The cost is $300, but the first 25 people who sign up get it for $250 for 3 days worth of training. And then there's some links here that I want you to pay attention to. There's the links to my class, to the website, my email. If you want to join the Relentless Learning mailing list, which is a good way for us to send you reminders of Relentless Learning, who's going to be the guest, and when it's going to be, so that you don't forget. We won't spam you. There's some links to YouTube, LinkedIn, my calendar. If you want to talk to me, I'm pretty passionate about it. If you're passionate about it too, you can get on my calendar and we can talk about it. And then there's some training testimonials for those of you interested in how efficacious this training is. I think it's quite a decent value, and I think that there's a lot of folks who would agree with me on that. So at this part of the show, want to bring in my big idea for the day. And the big idea is something that's called Apke's first law of Agile transformation. It was originally posted in May of 2013, so this thing's been around for a while. And it was posted under the blog title Apke's Law. It's now Apke's first law of Agile transformation, because since then I've come up with a few others that I want to publish, but this was the very first one, and it was just Apke's Law back then. So in the comments section, there is a place and a link to it if you want to see the original post, which is quite interesting. again, May of 2013. And Apke's first law of Agile transformation, at least as it originally was worded, said this: your transition to Agile will only go as far as the highest ranking manager who understands and supports it. And interestingly enough, I've changed the wording a little bit over the years. I put new and improved with a question mark of whether this is actually an improved wording. But the new wording is your Agile transformation will only go so far as the highest ranking leader who understands and supports it. Because I like the word leader better than manager. I think you've heard me say that before. So why is this a big idea? I want to give you just a few stories. First, where did this come from? Because this comes from over 11 years ago. I was working at a financial services company, and I was an Agile coach and I was a Scrum Master. And I noticed that there was a VP of software development and there was a head of the PMO. Those two people basically had the same level within the organization. They had very, very different views on what agility meant. And what I was hoping for, which didn't happen at the time, was that there was somebody who might be at a level above these two, who would be able to arbitrate their decisions and help provide guidance on how the organization was going to move forward and make decisions with regard to agility. So that was the seed. This was even longer ago than when I first wrote this blog, but it planted the seed in my head that maybe there needs to be somebody at a high level who understands agility, who can make decisions and help guide the organization. It was a little bit later that I found myself in San Antonio, one of my first Agile gigs, and I worked with a gentleman who's a guest on the show and my mentor. His name is Tom Malash. Some of you all are familiar with Tom. He may even be here listening in today. I don't know. But I remember sitting down with Tom one time at work, and we were having a cup of coffee, and we had a conversation, and he brought up something to me, and that topic was a chief electricity officer. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but he said, you know, back in the old days when electricity was new, they used to have these people called chief electricity officers. And the reason they had chief electricity officers was that they needed people who understood how electricity was going to change things, because it was a groundbreaking change. I think we're going to see the same thing actually when it comes to AI. That we may need some people at the tops of organizations who really understand AI, because we need guidance on how to do it. We don't have chief electricity officers anymore because they're not needed. And so in my mind, as I was talking to Tom, I came up with the idea of maybe we need somebody at the C level. And this is a little bit of a different topic and maybe something I'll talk about before, but I came up with the concept of a chief agile officer, a chief agility officer. And the reason being is I have seen in my experience that there have been numerous times when agile transformations work very well at the team level. We've all seen this, by the way, over the years as agile has changed, because now we have all these scaling things of how do we move it beyond just one or two teams? How can we make it more of an organizational wide type of change? And I noticed this concept of people who supported it at different levels of the organization. So I had one instance where we had 600 developers in multiple teams, and we were doing very well with the transformation at the team level, but we had some very well strategically placed vice presidents who weren't really on board with the transformation. And they did a pretty good job of derailing some of the progress that we could have made. Not that we weren't successful. I don't know if I want to use that word success, but they helped derail it because they were well placed in that organization. So we kind of moved up. Apke's first law of agile transformation, we kind of transformed up until we hit them and that level of the organization. Conversely, I worked for C-level people who understood and supported it. And because of their understanding and supporting, we were able to actually make a lot more progress. And so this is the Apke's first law of agile transformation is in order for us to transform, and it's probably true of any organizational transformation, you not only need people who support it, because without the support, obviously it's going to be very, very difficult, but you need people who understand it. Because Agile is about making decisions and making better decisions. And unfortunately, if somebody doesn't really understand agility, it doesn't take much for one decision to undo a lot of other things that are happening within the organization. The higher up you go in the hierarchy of the organization, the more impactful any decision is made. It's pretty intuitive. And so the decisions with impact need to be made, if we're going to be successful with an Agile transformation, by people who understand it. It's rather simple concept, but it's one that I don't know how many organizations actually pay any attention to it. So maybe not life-changing, maybe not a big aha moment for you, but Apke's first law of Agile transformation. And that's my concept of big idea. But I want to spend some time, and we're a little bit ahead of time, but that's good. We'll give Llewellyn a little bit more time. I'm going to bring Llewellyn to the stage. Hey, Llewellyn.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm gonna read from your bio because it's wonderful. Yeah. Then I'm gonna tell some stories on you. Llewellyn Falco is an Agile technical coach who specializes in teaching teams how to slay their legacy code dragons. His style is akin to a personal trainer, working with teams to create healthy and lasting technical habits. He's a creator of open source testing tool Approval Tests, co-author of the Mob Programming Guidebook, and co-founder of teachingkidsprogramming.org. He is an internationally renowned speaker who's presented at over 200 conference sessions since 2009. Probably one of the best Agile minds that I know, and I know a few people, certainly from a technical standpoint and from a learning standpoint. We put some links and other things in the comments for Llewellyn. Llewellyn's quite well known, and so for those of you who are catching us live, it's great. If not, you catch the replay. Llewellyn and I have known each other for a few years now, and I'd like to consider my friend. And I always say, we're friends if you'll help me move, but that's a different. I'll give you a call.
Haven't helped you move yet.
Haven't helped me move yet. But we first met when I was doing my nonprofit. And he gave a number of presentations that were just so well received. And I love the work that you're doing with Woody and others on mob programming. And we talked about that. And then we have this passion for training and development and helping people understand things. And so we ended up, best good fortune of my life, I got to work with some of the best Agile coaches in the world at one of my previous gigs. Llewellyn was there. I was able to get him to work with us. And we not only did Relentless Learning every week, we did it every day for a while. And Llewellyn did a lot of those. So I'm just so excited always when I get the chance to have Llewellyn speak to the world, because he has such a great way of presenting and such a good way of putting these things. So I'm going to let him have that in 1 second. I do want to remind folks that you're probably going to have some good questions. In order for those questions, for us to get to those questions, the only way we can do it on LinkedIn Live is you're going to put them in the comments. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. We'll make sure we get to them after Llewellyn's presentation. But it's with great pleasure, as always, that I'm here to introduce my friend Llewellyn. And did I miss anything before you get started?
No, I don't think so. Like, that's the key part of it, right? I'm a technical coach, which means I sit with the programmers and we program together. We use mob programming to do that. Like, it's a very hands-on, dirty thing, but that is not what I want to talk about today. In fact, it leads really nicely into what you said, which you sort of made a little bit of an offhand comment of, like, do the people who are putting these systems together think about and study the systems that they're putting together?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, perfect. Llewellyn, without further ado, I'm going to jump out of the way. I'm going to let you take over here.
All right. So let me share my screen and make sure that I have this set up right. So share screen. Good. Entire screen. Screen one. I believe I have that now sharing the screen. Have I done that right?
Yep.
Yes.
No, you're good. I'm going to get out of the way and let you
All
go.
right. Great. Well, hello, everyone. I am Llewellyn Falco. As Larry mentioned, I am an Agile technical coach. Was one of the people with Woody Zool creating mob programming, created strong style programming, and created approval tests. Lots and lots of stuff in the technical side, none of which I really want to talk about today. Because as a technical coach, I have gotten to come into many, many different systems. That's one of the things I really like about technical coaching is it's always a new challenge, right? And for someone who gets bored very easily, like that's really helpful. So I want to talk today about a particular smell that I see a lot, which is shared versus split pain. There we go. Nope. Whoa. Let's see what just happened there. Let's try that one more time. There we go. All right. So I want to start by talking about systems thinking. System thinking is like an entire area which basically says almost the opposite of people. It says stop thinking about people as individuals and start thinking about systems, right? Think about people almost as non-player characters like NPCs. They have rules that they follow, and then you end up with these systems that have these emergent behaviors that might not be as predictable as if you thought all humans do what they think they're going to do. And a great way of thinking about this is this picture, right? This comes from the UX community, right? And like here you have a designer and they have made a, a sidewalk, and then you have people, and the people are like, hey, I can just cut across this path, right? And when you think about systems, you tend to have a better chance of realizing A, that this can happen, and B, that it did happen, right? A lot of times, if you just think people will do what you tell them, right, you kind of ignore that this whole user experience thing is occurring. A lot of times this is labeled the Cobra effect, right? It's an economics term, but it actually comes from a story of a prince in India who really disliked cobras. And the prince was rich, used to getting what he wanted. So he was like, you know what? I'm just going to pay people to kill cobras. Do not like snakes. And so he started paying a bounty. Every cobra that you brought in, you got some rubies. And people very quickly realized that it's much easier to farm cobras than to hunt cobras. So they started raising cobras and then killing them and bringing them to the prince and getting their bounties. And that meant that the prince very quickly was not that rich. And so he was like, screw this, like the bounty's over. This is a bad idea. And now all these farmers had all these cobras and they're like, what am I going to do with all these snakes? And so they just turned them loose. And the city was now more overrun by cobras than ever before. The result of making a rule or a law to reduce the cobra population ended up with the cobra population going up tenfold. This happens a lot, right? And it happens because we tend to think people are going to do what we want when we do a rule, as opposed to thinking about systems and the behavior that emerges from those systems. And there's a question that's been bugging me a lot, which is, do the people who create systems study systems thinking? It's very akin to what Larry just pointed out. Like there are people in charge of creating systems, CEOs, high-level management, politicians. All of these people create systems. But do they study system thinking? Or do they just think that if I want something to occur, I create this rule and it will? That the intent of my rule is going to outlive the actual application, the way that people react to the change in systems? And to be honest with you, I don't know the answer to this question. I've seen very little evidence that tells me that the people who are creating systems study system thinking. Maybe they are. All of that being said, probably they're not on this call. I'm not going to give this talk to you because I think you are creating systems and I can change your mind. I want to give you this talk because I believe in the future you will be creating systems. And when you do, maybe some of the things that we talk about today will still percolate in the back of your mind. And so I'm going to show you this really simple smell in systems design. Maybe you'll start to see it when you are in a place where you can create systems. So let's talk about shared pain versus split pain. I want to start by defining what I mean by this. So let's imagine that I am lying in bed. And I'm not lying in bed because I want to. I'm lying in bed because my knee hurts. Getting up, walking around is painful for me. So I am on bed rest. And not like begrudgingly. I'm in bed rest because it really hurts to get up. Hurts to walk around. I don't want to do it. But while my knee is hurting, it also turns out I have to go to the bathroom. Now, getting up to go to the bathroom, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt my knee, and I know it's going to hurt. But I also know that eventually I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. And if I don't get up and go to the bathroom, it's going to be worse for me. And because I am experiencing the pain of both of these things, I'm going to do what is best for the overall system of me. But what if it's not one person? What if there's two people? What if I'm in bed and my knee is hurting? I don't want to get out of bed. But my job is just to control the key to the bathroom. So the bathroom is locked. And I would have to get out of bed and walk across to the bathroom to unlock it. But you, whose knee is perfectly fine, are the one who has to go to the bathroom. So now, me taking action only increases my pain. Now, you might argue there's the system of the house. The household would benefit if I got up. And I would say that you are overestimating my generosity. You are in trouble in this situation. And the household is in trouble. Because the person who has the pain and the person who can cure the pain, we have conflicting motivation. That's split pain. What I want to point out is split pain almost always ends up in suboptimal results. So if you are designing a system and you see this at play, you know right away bad things are going to happen. So I want to give you some stories of this happening. I'm going to start really abstract and then I'm going to get gradually more and more concrete. So let's start with the first story of DevOps. So back in the old days, there used to be dev and there used to be ops. Devs were the programmers. They would write the code and, sometimes they would write bugs. And then we would give it to ops or operations to deploy and maintain it. Now, ops was responsible for the website always working, right? Which means if there were bugs by dev, ops was the one who had to fix those bugs. One person's creating the bugs, one person's fixing the bugs. We are right in split pain. And it didn't work very well. Yahoo, this is around 2010, 2012 area, decided to put these two teams together. So the people who were writing the code were now responsible for deploying and maintaining operations as well. As soon as that pain became shared, what we found is that a whole bunch of things improved. Devs started paying attention to how do I make this easy to roll back? How do I make this non-destructive? All these things that they didn't used to have to worry about. That was ops problem. Now became their problem. And this worked so well that eventually we just called it DevOps. And many, many companies were like, oh, this DevOps thing is great. We need DevOps. In fact, it's so great, we need to make a DevOps team. And so now when you go to a lot of enterprises, you will find a dev team and a DevOps team. And we've removed shared pain. And as a result, we find many of the same problems we used to have with dev and ops now just under dev and DevOps. And it's not because DevOps isn't doing the right things or doing the right technologies or paying attention to the latest trends. It's just a simple system outcome of split pain. The people who are causing the pain and the people who solve the pain, not the same people. So let's tell a second story. This is a story from a client out in Miami. I can tell two stories from them. And this one is the works on my machine. So I came out to this company. They had a whole bunch of developers, about 300 of them. And they had some testers. Right? And the key part here is the testers were on the 4th floor and the devs were on the 3rd floor. Now that's only separated by 1 floor, but you would be surprised what a large barrier a flight of stairs can be. And fortunately, I got to work at this company for a while. So after working with the developers, I finally got a chance to go up and coach the testers. So I went up to coach the testers and we were talking about like, hey, what's on your work plate for the day? What's your backlog look like for this week? And they had this one bug that they're like, oh God, this bug's going to be a problem. Now that seems like that frustration, that seems like opportunity to a coach. So where I was like, oh, let's lean into that one. What's going on with that? And they're like, oh, well, the problem with this is Juan. Juan was a developer from Brazil on the 3rd floor. And I knew Juan quite well, actually, and I liked Juan. So I was like, well, what's wrong with Juan? And they're like, every time we send him bugs, he always like ignores them and like turns them off and stuff. I'm like, that doesn't sound like Juan. Juan's really hardworking and a good guy. And so I went down the stairs and I got Juan and I moved him up, creating shared pain. And when Juan got there, there's sort of this like apprehensive look from the testers. And to be fair, like a fairly apprehensive look from Juan himself. He was kind of there because I asked him. And they said, oh, it's bug number. I forgot what the number was. But when Juan heard it, he was like, oh, that's not a real bug. I've tried to reproduce that like 20 times. And they're like, they're like, it is a real bug. And I was like, well, can you just show him on our machine? And so they brought it up and they reproduced the steps on their machine. And just as you would expect on their machine, instant failure. Which Juan was like, oh, well, how are you doing that? What are your settings? So they start opening up the settings. And very quickly, Juan went from, this is now my problem, and it's a puzzle I want to solve. Juan was great at solving puzzles, right? When they were his pain. The only difference is on different floors, it wasn't his pain. I had to bring him up the flight of stairs so we could be on these computers so we could really experience the pain. And once you experience that pain, solving it almost took care of itself. So I want to tell you one other story from this client in this testing group, which was the testing videos. So after I spent the week with them and we went through different bugs and stuff, I got another chance to spend a week with them. And with this team, again, we're up on the 4th floor. The testers told me about these videos they made. So they were doing like manual testing through the website using Selenium, and they would record videos of Selenium reproducing the exact steps that created the bug failure. Which means whenever you got a bug, you'd get this video of the bug being reproduced, which is just incredible. And I was like, that is amazing. Did you just get this done? And they're like, no, we've been recording videos for the last year. And that caught me a bit by surprise because I had been working down on the 3rd floor quite a bit, and I had never seen these videos. So it's like, why haven't I seen these? If these videos have been out there for a year, they seem really useful. Am I misunderstanding that they're actually useful? Maybe they're not useful. Maybe that's why I've never gotten to see them. But they seemed useful. So I took the testers down to the 3rd floor. Next time I was working on a bug with the devs, and I said, hey, let's solve this together. And the very first thing I said is, hey, can we bring up the videos? And my dev team was sort of like, what videos? And the testers are like, the videos of the bugs. I was like, show them the videos. So here's the thing. The developers on the 3rd floor were paid more, salaried more than the testers on the 3rd floor. Devs are considered a more valuable asset, or maybe it's market price, or I don't know. Either way, I do know they got paid more. And a consequence of them getting paid more is they got slightly nicer computers, right? So they got these laptops. But the testers who got paid slightly less got desktops. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but those laptops connected to the corporate internet via Wi-Fi. And the desktops from the testers connected by Ethernet. So the separation between these two floors was not just a set of stairs. There was also a firewall in between them that would only allow internal traffic going through HTTP or HTTPS, right? So port 4043. Those videos were hosted on a desktop up on the 3rd floor. So they were serving off of 1337. It's LEET. It's a really common protocol when you want to seem cool, but it was completely inaccessible to the developers. And so for a year, they had been making these videos to solve pain, but because they were not experiencing the pain, they never realized those videos weren't being used and weren't actually solving any pain. All the good intention in the world, but none of the good results. And again, from their perspective, the videos are there. I'm hosting the videos. I'm making sure they're everything there. They're not seeing how people are using stuff. Got one last story for you, and then I'm going to close, which is story of the bug bounty. This is at a previous client. And the situation is a little long, right? There's currently a security bug bounty. If a security bug is found at this company in a production, the reward is paid to a hacker from outside the company that finds it. It was a good way to get a lot of hackers to like check our sites, find vulnerabilities that we could then fix. That bounty, unfortunately, was being paid from the budget of the teams responsible for the project, which is an interesting choice. Either way, at the time that I put this together, there was about $1 million that had already been paid out for bounties. Now, here's the scenario. A team I'm working with found and fixed a security bug before a hacker reported it. So we got lucky. We found a thing. If the hacker had reported it, it would have been like a 30, 40 grand bounty. But we found it and we fixed it. And now the question is really simple. How long should we wait to release that fix? Maybe a better way of phrasing that is, how many days should we give the hackers to claim the bounty before we release the fix? And you might think that the answer to this is obviously 0. Why would you ever give the hackers more time? Right? But that is not the actual answer. The actual answer was usually no more than 2 to 3 days. Why? Why would we give 2 to 3 days? Because we could not release until release management gave us an okay. Now, we're the dev team. We get penalized heavily if the security bugs are discovered or if a derivative bug is discovered. Oh, the side window's open. Let's check the back window. That's open too. That's 2 bounties I get to collect. Right? Or if the bugs took a long time to fix. For us, unequivocally, our best strategy was to fix these bugs fast and release them. And it was important that we did our best strategy because there were layoffs at this company. Nobody wanted to be the next person to be fired. But there was also the code freeze team. Now, they did not get penalized if there were security bugs that were discovered. They did not get penalized if derivative bugs were found. They did not get penalized if the bugs took long to fix. But they did get penalized, heavily penalized, if they ever released anything that broke something new. Their best strategy was to be as conservative as possible. If they could have gotten away with it, they would never have released anything. That would have been their best strategy. They couldn't get away with that. But if they could have, that would have been great. And so we have these 2 separate sources of pain. And the question is, what happens? How do they balance out? Well, the answer is the code freeze team wins. Because there's nothing the dev team could do. They could not release without permission. And the question you might want to ask is just, where's the company's interest in all this? Has the company, the very people at the top who set this system up, have they set up a system that is going to give them the outcomes they want? And I will just again say, anytime you see split pain, you are not going to get the systems you want. You're not going to get the outcomes you want. Which comes back to that very first question of, do the people who create these systems study system thinking? Or when you are the people who create these systems, will you remember what we've learned about system thinking? If you have a system and you have a piece here that causes pain in red and a piece here that fixes pain in blue, those are different people. You will not get the results you want. The best solution, or the minimum solution, is that the person who fixes the pain is one of the people who feels the pain. But the system I like the best is when one person in the system feels pain, the whole system feels pain. Because that doesn't just allow the pain to get fixed, it has the team swarm around fixing the problems. And then the last stories I'd love to hear. We don't have the ability to do talking here, but we do have chat. I would love to hear your stories. I have yet to talk to someone who hasn't experienced something like this. I would like to know your stories. That's all I got for you today.
Thank you, Llewellyn. So those folks who are with us live, if you have any stories, you want to put them into the comments, that would be great, and we'll probably cover those. If you have any questions, you can certainly put those in the comments as well. Let's get back to your question.
Yeah.
Your answer to it, your perception of it. You alluded to it briefly. If I had to say, in your experience, how many people who are actually creating the systems understand that they're creating systems?
Yes.
What percentage would you give it? It can't be everybody. It's not 0, but what do you say is, if you had to guess?
It's got to be really low. Now, to be fair, I might be biased. I'm a technical coach, and the general rule is that when companies are doing good, they don't call me. So there is very likely a chance that I'm seeing skewed data, but almost nobody that I talk to thinks about the system, most of the time they think about the ruling or the rule or the, like, I want to create a team for quality because I want more quality. They don't think about like, what does this, how does the system look from that? They often don't revise it based on, oh, maybe I've set up a system that doesn't, just has an unpredictable outcome.
Yeah.
They usually say, oh, that rule didn't work, I'll take it away, or I'll add this extra rule that will now make it work. And again, most of that goes from the idea that people will just do the intent behind the rule, as opposed to, let's say, the letter of the rule. Most of the time they'll do the letter of the rule. But even then, it's an iffy.
Yeah, we have some comments coming in. I'm just going to share them with you and the rest of the group if you don't see them. One from my wife, Jana, and we have another here just saying thanks for what you're doing. And Curtis is saying, yeah, I've been here, done that. I think most of us have. I think the interesting thing for me is now we have this understanding, and I share your viewpoint. I mean, I think we think similarly, that it's very few who create systems, who understand they're creating systems, or that they own systems and they understand that they own systems, is the way I describe it.
Yeah.
Is there
and also
what's
a lot of times,
what can we do to make that different?
I mean, so the key to when you have split pane is to make shared pane. Right? Like, I'm a big believer in shared pane. Now, I get a lot of that for free because of mob programming, right? Like, a lot of times you have split pane on this very same team, and just getting everyone to sit together, that goes away.
Yeah.
Right. Another example is a lot of times when they were writing Selenium tests, they would need IDs on fields, and they made all these posters and stuff trying to get the programmers to add IDs, and we never did. But the moment that we had to write tests, IDs started showing up everywhere because it's such a pain not to have them, right? And so, and I think TDD does a similar thing where it's like TDD gets you to think about the user of the code as the writer of the code, right? And again, that shared pane is me. So the thing is shared pane, but the problem is that a lot of times the people who create the systems don't ever live in the systems.
Yeah.
They kind of live at the top of the system. If they go down and just experience the different things, they will feel the pain. They'll be like, wait a second, why is this other team not helping me? I'm feeling pain here. And they're now in a position where they can just be like, boom, let me put these two teams together, and now it's everybody's pain, and then the stuff gets fixed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in that. And there's management styles that have come around. One of them was from HP. They call it management by walking around, right? And then another one we see is like Musk at Tesla would very often join the team where the bottleneck was.
Mm-hmm.
And like just that brings focus to the actual pain that now can do a system-wide heal, right?
Yeah.
Because when Musk is sitting there, you can be like, fix it. When you're walking around and you see where the pain is, you can be like, hey, you two, get together. And now the pain is there, and then it goes away. Very rarely will someone not fix their own pain if they can.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is incentives, and I'm looking at time, and it's such a deep subject. There's so many things to get into. I wanted to throw one thing out that came into my mind because you talked about being on different floors.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And
it might as well be different worlds.
Right. Well, there's a study of that. I don't know if you know the word, but I'm going to give it to the audience anyway. It's called propinquity. I remember that. Propinquity is a study of distance and how it affects systems. I'm probably oversimplifying, but it's a pretty interesting study they did it with people who collaborated on scientific papers or something like that. And for each 100 yards, people were separated. They were, 50% less likely to collaborate. And they've also studied propinquity. Our friends come from people who are close to us, not because they necessarily share all our interests and everything.
The guy from Freakonomics is
yeah.
Nobel Prize winning economics, right? His comment was, all the people I write my papers with, I've gone to lunch with. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's not coincidence, right? It's the fact that like you got that person was around, you got to have that shared experience. It's so valuable.
Curtis was putting in a thing. I just wanted to get that one for the record because we're running out of time. Don't really have time to address it because we are out of time, and I want to be cognizant of people's time. It is Black Friday, and I appreciate you being here. A lot of folks are off, so hopefully you had some more time to actually spend with us. Great subject. We'll have you again sometime. Maybe we'll talk about some other things because you always bring out some great things. There's so much into it, though. Incentives, I'm thinking all about this. Incentives. I think about systems. I think about Gold Rat because you talked about theory of constraints. There's just so much to it. But anyway,
Gold Rat is like a massive systems thinker.
Right. Absolutely. So if you're not familiar with Gold Rat, trust me, stay with the Relentless Learning on Fridays. We'll talk a lot. I'll talk a lot about systems. I'm sure other guests will talk about systems. It's really, really important. Llewellyn, thank you so much for joining us. As always, it is such a pleasure to see you. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and you have wonderful holidays.
Before we go. So if I wanted to share this with other people who couldn't be here because they're out at Black Friday, is there a link that I can share the recordings?
Absolutely. The link that you have that you shared before, actually, as soon as
you can go and see it later.
Stream, it's going to be streaming for anyone who comes up. It's available for all time. And so you can send them to that. If you have any problems, you can let me know. So I want to wrap it up, but thank you so much, Llewellyn. You have a wonderful holidays, and we look forward to seeing you. Keep us informed about all your exploits and things that you're doing. Stay in touch with us. And if anybody, I know I've got some people who are first timers, and I invite people to this. If you're interested in being a guest, you have a big idea you want to talk about, please contact me. We'll get you scheduled. We have scheduling for next week. So next week's Bill Lennon's going to join us. Thank you, Llewellyn. Everybody have a great day. Have a wonderful Friday. We'll see you all next week.